Hi, it's Lisa here from Soul to Soul Yoga. Today I'm going to demonstrate how to make a curry sauce, the base curry sauce. She's one of my favourites. We have it every week, some kind of curry. We love Indian food. In fact, that's where I first went vegetarian years ago, because the food is so good. And actually, did you know that around 85% of people living in India are vegetarians, more than the rest of the world put together. So the food is fantastic. But this base curry sauce was taught to me by a colleague of mine years ago, and I've always used it. You can add to it, you can add different flavours, different elements depending on the type of curry that you want, but this is a really good basis, and I'll go through the different spices later. But almost all curries have the holy trinity of ingredients. That's the three base ingredients, which are garlic. So I've got about 5 cloves there. I'm big on flavour, so I always think put a bit more in, you know, you can never go wrong. Garlic's really good for you as well, really good antioxidant. Fresh ginger, so that's a good chunk of fresh ginger. I'm going to pop it in the chopper, but of course you could chop it or mince it if you like, but I'm going to use the lazy version. Why not cut a few corners? I'm going to put a chilli in. This is just a little red, I think it's like a bird's eye chilli, so it's quite spicy, but only one, because it's Cassie's favourite, this dish, isn't it?
Yes, it's amazing.
And she doesn't like it too spicy. So obviously you can add more chilli, you could add some chilli powder, but we tend to add it on the table so that Cassie doesn't burn her mouth off.
Yeah.
A little bit of spice is fine, eh, Cass? And then some onions. So the holy trinity is the chilli, garlic, and ginger. If you don't have fresh ginger, no worries, just use dried, or just skip it and just use the spices, it'll be fine. And then onions. Now I'm going to use a lot of onions for this dish, because onions really are the basis of a good curry sauce. Some Indian cooking doesn't use onions. In fact, in Ayurveda, onions and garlic wouldn't be used, which is the Indian sister science to yoga. They wouldn't always be used, but we're going to use it. It really thickens the sauce and makes it really tasty. So I'm going to mince all these together using my blender. As I said, you can just chop them, but this is just a nice cheat where you don't have to make too much effort. Mix it all up. Easy as that. I'm going to pop them in to my already prepared oniony. See, there's a lot of onions there, but I'm going to make a big pot of curry, and I'm going to do the base sauce today with lentils and spinach. But you can then, when you've got this base sauce, you could use it for anything. You can curry anything, any vegetable, pulses, chickpeas, meat if you must. Obviously I'd prefer you didn't. But yeah, so this base sauce will really be a nice sauce. We're going to go over to the cooker. Come. And we're going to make a start. So you just pop it on the stove. I've got an Arga style cooker, so mine is always hot, but obviously just if you got any normal stovetop, just on a medium heat. I'm going to use rapeseed oil, because this curry that I'm doing today is more of a North Indian style curry. South Indian style often would use coconut oil. You can use coconut oil.
Oh.
And you'd use things like coconut milk and maybe curry leaves, but we're going to do North Indian style, where they would have more sort of potato, more dairy. This is a vegan curry, so we're not using dairy today. So traditionally ghee would be used, which is kind of a clarified butter. So you could use butter to cook these in, but I'm just going to use rapeseed oil because it's flavourless. And then let that sizzle away. Now before I put this is the cooler bit. Now before I put my onions in, I'm going to add whole spices. A little bit about the spices. There's tons of different spices. I like to layer up my spices. So if I've got time, then the ideal would be to have lots of different spices, the whole spices and the dried, and put a little bit of a lot of different spices in. That's what makes a really nice, flavoursome curry. But the 4 main ingredients, the 4 main ones really are cumin, coriander, chilli, paprika. But there's tons and tons of other ones, and it depends on the region and the type of cooking to which ones you might use. So I'm just going to use what I've got today, but come with me, Cassandra. If you're in a rush or you haven't got a lot of spices, you could just use a ready mixed powder, which I have some in. because they're really quick and easy just to add spice to stuff. I could even use a paste, which again, I keep this in because I really like these patat paste. Just put a blob in and that's your spices done. But today I'm gonna raid my spices and pop some in. So we'll have whole spices first. Weirdly, I've run out of cumin seed. Cumin seed is one of my favourite things, which is jeera. So I put it on the list, but we don't need it, no matter. We just use what we've got. So here's a few kalonji seeds. These are nigella. Again, these are kind of like non-essential. There's a few mustard seeds here, black mustard seeds. Just half a teaspoon maybe of each, maybe a teaspoon. This is fenugreek, sorry. I've run out of fennel seeds. I actually like fennel seeds. Oh, hang on, no, here they are. Some fennel seeds. A few of these, and again, just kind of pop them in. Don't let them burn, because they can burn really quickly, so you want this on a low heat. And you can smell them already. So there's fragrance from seeds, really lovely. And again, I would always use jeera or cumin seeds, but I don't have any, so I won't. We will use dry. But remember, if you don't have all these and you maybe live alone, you don't want to have huge amounts of stuff in, you could always just use pre-packaged or share, say to a friend, kind of, shall we buy some different spices between us and have different pots, because then you don't have to feel that the spices are going to go off before you use them. I'm going to pop in all of that onion. Look, there's loads there, but believe me, this is worth it, because it's actually the onions and the tomatoes, which we'll add in a little while, which are really going to make that sauce lovely. So that wonderful sauce that you get in a good curry that just is kind of sweet but spicy and full of flavour. Now the trick with, up to me, the trick with, I think with a curry, with this type of curry, is cook it as long as you can. So if you just cook these onions for a little bit, they're not really going to take on too much of the sweetness. You want to cook them on a very low heat for a long time. So they really start to melt down. They become sweet, and then you use them and they thicken the sauce. So when you put your water and your stock and whatnot in later, they're going to thicken that sauce and make it really, really tasty. So they almost kind of disappear. They don't disappear, but you know what I mean. So there you go. Have a little look in there, and we're going to leave that. I'm going to pop perhaps a little bit of water in, or a little bit more oil, so that they don't dry out. Pop them on a low heat and just keep looking at them, keep stirring them. You leave them on the top of the stove, or if you like me, got an oven that you pop these on, you could pop them in the oven. And we'll come back to that at the next stage. Probably, at least 10-15 minutes if you can, on a very low heat. Until they start to brown and go a little bit caramelized, but you don't want them too brown, you want them just kind of melting almost. I'll check in with you in a mo. So my onions have been cooking down for quite a while now, probably actually on a really low heat. There might have been the oven, but you could have had them on top for about half an hour. Now, you don't need to cook them that long, but the longer you can do it on a very low heat, if you have the time, great. If not, 5-10 minutes. You just want to make sure that the onions are nice and soft. So I've taken them out a couple of times, and let me grab I took them out a couple of times and popped a little bit of water in just to stop them sticking. But you can see, from that big amount of onions, they've really come down and they're like soft. These will thicken the sauce and make it they've gone sweet. So that's really pungent with all those spices. So stage 2, we're going to use spices in the onion mix. So you could use, as I said, pre-ground like curry powder, which has got different spices. Some of them are really good actually now. You could use, I really like these patak spices. I know they're a naughty cheat, but they are really good, and especially if you're in a rush, just to put a blob of that in, that would be fine. But spices are really, really, Indian spices, loads of spices, are really, really good for you. So if you can get Indian spices in your meals, they all have a slightly different effect on your body. And you think about your gut bacteria and how we want to keep healthy. A lot of these spices, they feed different elements. They're really good. So look it up, but I would recommend using lots of different ones. So the main ones I'm going to use for this curry are ground coriander. As I said, you use your whole spices first. Coriander wants to be your major one. So I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of, or at least a tablespoon of coriander. And a bit more. As I said, I like it to be flavoursome. Oh, there was a little bit of coriander there. We should have used that. Cumin or jeera. As I said, I haven't got the seeds, so I'm just going to use, perhaps 2 teaspoons of jeera or cumin. A little bit of chilli. If you like chilli, because Cassie's not a massive spice fan, so we're going to just have a little bit of chilli, but you could put a bit more. And paprika. So about a teaspoon of paprika. And then give that a stir up. Now, I'm not going to put any salt in with this because it has the spices in, and also we are going to be cooking lentils with it, so you don't want to put your salt in until the end when you're cooking lentils because it stops them cooking so well. So you can see these spices now. You need to cook your spices, so you need to make sure that they've had a good minute or 2. You can smell them when they start to to release the pungency. Okay, so next stage, and again, this is one not to rush. So if you can cook this, I'm cooking this for later because it will get better later. In fact, it will be even better tomorrow. Any curry, I think, is better if you leave it because it kind of all the flavours mix together better. So next stage is tomatoes. So I'm going to pop a tin of tomatoes in there, and we're not going to waste that. And a good squirt of tomato puree. You don't have to use the tomato puree, it just gives it an extra richness. You could use fresh tomatoes, of course, too. And then you want to heat this up. You could use passata, like the tomato sauce. Whatever you got. Whatever you got. You could blitz up tomatoes. You could even chop these up for an even smoother paste. And I know that some curries and some curry houses, this base sauce you would blitz up in your blender, and then you could just, once this is all cooked, you could just freeze it, and you've got a curry sauce ready and waiting. Now I'm going to pop a little bit of water in this tin because we don't waste that bit of tomato goodness. Nothing gets wasted, and the tin gets recycled afterwards. And then pop that in. Now, so stage 2 is then cooking this down for a good while. So we want those spices and the tomatoes to cook down. So either leaving it on the top, uncovered, I would leave it uncovered, but then on a very, very low heat, again, just bubbling, maybe for 15 minutes at the most for this stage. Or I'm going to pop it in the oven because that's the way you cook on this kind of cooker. And I'm going to leave it for 10 minutes on a medium heat, and then I'm going to check it, and if I want to leave it longer, just put it on a very low heat for even longer. So check back in a moment to see next stage. Woo. So the curry sauce has been cooking now. It's been on a medium heat for about 15 minutes. You could leave it longer, you could even be a little bit shorter. We are going to cook it again. So that's your base sauce. Now you can obviously add water to make more sauce. You could just freeze this, you could cool it and freeze it, so you've got a delicious curry sauce whenever you want it. Just to add, you could add whatever you like now to this sauce and it will be delicious. You could add chickpeas, or you could add, anything you wanted. But I'm going to show you one of our week time favourites, which is really cheap actually, very nutritious, quick to cook. So you've got your base sauce here, and we're going to add red lentils and spinach. But the first stage is lentils. Now, you're supposed to wash lentils, but who's got time for that? So, I've not been ill from them yet, but yeah, you're supposed to wash them first. Red lentils are really quick to cook actually, so I'm going to put them straight into the sauce and cook them together. But you can cook them on a low heat really for a long time. Again, they get nice and soft and really develop the flavours. I sometimes use brown lentils, which I love too, or green lentils, and they take a little longer, so you can put them in the sauce, or you could cook them separately. You can even use tins of lentils because they're really quick. You could pop them in, you could use any other type of pulse. So I'm just going to pour some lentils in, and as I said, yeah, it's going to be a lot because I'm going to make a big pot. You saw the sauce, there's quite a lot of sauce there, so actually this can make a big pot of yumminess, which will do us for tonight and perhaps a couple of either for the day after or the day after that, because things keep for a few days, or you can pop it into the freezer. And of course, lentils swell. So I'm just going to coat them first of all. You don't have to do that. And then we're going to actually pop some water in. You could use stock. And just give it a stir around. I don't think this needs vegetable stock. I think it's going to have loads of flavour from all those spices. But you could use a bit of veg stock if you wanted. And as you can see, what we want is enough water because the lentils are going to absorb the water, and again they will also create thickness in the sauce as well as those wonderful onions. Don't add any salt. Again, it prevents the lentils cooking properly. If you want a salt, you can always add it at the end. And that is the next stage. Up to me, Cass. So we're going to pop this now. Either, again, you could cover it now and pop it on a low heat, either in the oven or on the top of the stove. And then we'll come back for the final stage in a little while. So probably I'm going to leave this. You can leave it as long as you can.
Oh,
Oh, with Fleabag. You can leave it as long as you want. I'm going to pop it in for at least half an hour. The lentils will cook in about 10 minutes. So if you want to do it quicker, you can. But on a lower heat for longer, again, the flavours will develop. So see you in a little while. Much quicker than that, but it's nice to leave it longer. So I'm just going to add the final touches. So here I have a bag of frozen spinach leaf. This is brilliant to keep in. Always have bags of this in because it's great to add to curries. You can add it to smoothies. It's obviously really nutritious. If you've got whole spinach, great, but as you probably know, it's like massive and goes down small. So I would need to do a smaller pot than this or cook it first and pop it in, whereas these have already been cooked and compressed, so you can just plop them in like this. We all like spinach, don't we, Cass, in our family? So you can pop plenty in.
But if you don't like spinach, you don't have to.
You could skip the spinach if you don't like lentils. You could put something else in. You could put chickpeas or any vegetables. As I said, the base sauce is really good with anything. So all that's going to do now is add a couple more. As you can see, it's a massive pot.
Yeah.
So there's going to be enough to freeze here. And I always like to do that. So if I'm in a rush and or I can't be bothered to cook something, I've always got a nutritious meal. We can just pull out the freezer as needed. So you can obviously, as I said, put fresh in. You could put other vegetables in at this stage, whatever you need. Now that's just going to cook down for another, I would say another 5 or 10 minutes, just until it's already cooked, the spinach. It's just until it's all melted. In fact, you might even just watch it here.
Yeah.
It's been in the oven now for about, I put out for 30 minutes on a very low heat. As I said, probably the lentils will cook much quicker than that, but it's nice to leave it longer. So I'm just going to add the final touches. So here I have a bag of frozen spinach leaf. This is brilliant to keep in. Always have bags of this in because it's great to add to curries. You can add it to smoothies. It's obviously really nutritious. If you've got whole spinach, great, but as you probably know, it's like massive and goes down small. So I would need to do a smaller pot than this or cook it first and pop it in, whereas these have already been cooked and compressed. So you can just plop them in like this. We all like spinach, don't we, Cass, in our family? So you can pop plenty in.
But if you don't like spinach, you don't have to.
You could skip the spinach if you don't like lentils. You could put something else in. You could put chickpeas or any vegetables. As I said, the base sauce is really good with anything. So all that's going to do now is add a couple more. As you can see, it's a massive pot.
Yeah.
So there's going to be enough to freeze here. And I always like to do that. So if I'm in a rush and or I can't be bothered to cook something, I've always got a nutritious meal. We can just pull out the freezer as needed. So you can obviously, as I said, put fresh in. You could put other vegetables in at this stage, whatever you need. Now that's just going to cook down for another, I would say another 5 or 10 minutes, just until it's already cooked, the spinach. It's just until it's all melted. In fact, you might even just watch it here.
Yeah. I know. Oh, look.
Actually, I could just put your spinach in, couldn't I?
Yeah, I might go.
And these veggies can just go in the freezer or on the side. Your garlic spinach can just go in, can't it? Save waste, isn't it? It's just spinach and garlic, which is what we... I'm going to put some of that oat cream in anyway.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Mm-hmm.
You should tell them how to
Okay.
it's all spinach, so you can see that.
Oh, it's just like spinach, it doesn't matter. It's not really relevant to the recipe. Okay, just watch that bubbling for a sec. Just have a taste.
This is a bit where we'll stop. Should we stop
No?
speeding? Okay. And back to
What, you didn't speed it up then, did you?
No.
No, I'll start talking and then when you come to my face you'll know that it's... I'll tell you in a sec. So look at me. Okay, so that's bubbling away. As you can see, all the spinach now has amalgamated in. Still a couple of frozen bits, so I'll keep cooking it, but I'm just going to finish off the dish. So I'm going to add, you don't have to, but it just adds a different spice blend. This is garam masala, and it's kind of like, it has cloves and cinnamon and all different, some different types of spices which we like. Just layers out just a teaspoon or so. This is a big pot. Just adds, as I said, some different. You don't have to add it. You could put a little bit of cinnamon or some cloves, or just skip it if you wanted. Now that is I'm gonna also add some, this is oat cream. Again, so I might have added like coconut milk. You could add a tin of coconut milk. You could add, you could serve with some yogurt, but a little bit of cream. Yeah, this is left over basically. I don't usually buy this oat milk, but Jim bought it as a thing to try. So I've used it for a couple of dishes, nice in pasta. So I'm just going to add a little bit, which just adds a bit of richness. You could add, as I said, coconut milk would be delicious in this, or if you have dairy, you could add yogurt. You could add coconut yogurt into this. So I'm going to just add a little bit more, and just to use it up. And just, you can see that kind of brings all those spices together. And I'm just going to try it before we finish the dish. As you can see, I think I put a few too many lentils in, but you know, we always like to have leftovers in our house. Could even give some to the neighbours. That's really nice. For me, we'd have a little more chilli, so me and Jim will probably add some chilli to the dish. And I'm just gonna take it over here where we shall finish it off. So I'm gonna serve this with some flatbreads, some roti or naan, some plain rice, some basmati rice, and also probably some, this is plain cocoa yogurt, which is really nice. I like the no sugar one, it's not so sweet. And you could even stir some spices through this if you wanted, or just put a blob of it on your curry. So, and obviously, if you like coriander, which I do, a good sprinkle of coriander. I'll put some in now, but I'll also put some fresh when we serve up. So there you go, that's my the base sauce for any curry you want, but I've made it with red lentils and spinach. Hope you enjoy.